Many people talk about the ups and downs of married life, but no one really prepares you for life after your spouse passes away. Welcome to Widowhood Real Talk with Dr. Tina, a safe place for widows, widowers, and their friends and family to talk about love and loss. Find comfort as you listen to honest conversations between Dr. Tina and invited guests who've experienced the loss of their forever partner, share their stories of love, grief, and healing. You are not alone in this journey. Join today's episode and discover a wealth of resources and learn how to connect with others who are traveling the same path. This is Widowhood Real Talk with Dr. Tina.
Widowhood. What do you do when you are a trained mental health professional and your person dies? How do you manage the mental health side and the I'm the griever side? How do they work together? This conversation and more is going to be answered in this conversation with Dannie D as he talks about the love of his life and what life looks like now. Let's get into this discussion. Hello, Dannie. Welcome to the Widowhood.
Hello.
Will you
Surprise.
Okay. Because when you hear welcome to the widowhood, what comes to mind first? Like no bars, no holding back, no social media, no bad words to not say. What comes to your mind when you hear that?
I like just the sound of it, right? Because it makes me feel like I'm in this sort of um environment where there's like flowers and dewdrops and falls and springs. I mean, like all of these like wonderful things that makes me feel comfortable.
Oh, I hear community
Mm.
and connection, and I'm not alone.
Yeah.
So most people may not understand why you feel that way when you hear that word. Why does it bring you comfort?
I think I'm at a place in my life, where I've done all the things that I wanted to do, or I should say set out to do. I was a professional dancer. I said I wanted to be a professional dancer when I was about like, 2 or 3 or 4. Now I was a little bit older, maybe like 4. I did that. I became a choreographer. I became a teacher. I became a clinician, and then now I'm licensed, and I bought property, and so like I've done all the things, and so now it allows me time to really sort of settle into who I am and identify, what's around me. I'm a big proponent of mindfulness and then implementing that self care practices within your daily routine. And so I find myself to be kind of in this present moment a lot of times in life.
Okay. Let me ask a different question. Who is not here in your life that's brought us to this conversation?
Yeah. Um, Dale
There.
uh, will respect me calling him Dale. I like Larry. Larry is a much better name
Okay.
for me.
Okay. We're gonna get into that. Like, I need to know. So now you got me with my notepad out. Okay.
But Dale Miller, yeah, it was very interesting because like I was not in a place to actually meet anybody. I was just not mentally, physically prepared. I was going through some illnesses and just transitions in general. This is prior to my injury, and I was still trying to figure out like who I am, as a person, as an individual, my identity. I mean, all of those different things because I was a dancer, and that's who I was. That was it.
Okay,
Yes, it
so hold
was.
on for a second. Not just a dancer. I mean, drop some of these things that you've done, the places you went to school. This is not, I mean, dancing would be like Tina saying she was dancing. No, no. Him as a professional, can you elaborate on that for the scholars of in the dance world so they can understand who you are and what you've done?
So I always say that Debbie Allen is my unofficial first dance teacher. Because I started watching Fame, the TV series. I hadn't seen the movie yet. I started watching Fame, the TV series. I saw Leroy and I was like, wait a minute. because I'd seen dance before, right? But I hadn't seen dance with people who look like me, which is again
Mm.
what presentation matters. And I saw Leroy and I was like, I can do that. I was like, wait, no, I want to do that.
So
Um, so for years, I just sort of watched Fame. I would put on my sister's leg warmers. I didn't know. I was just emulating, like mimicking what was going on TV. And I would sit in what we call the center splits, which is your legs wide open in a second position. And I would just sit there and just watch the show. Eventually, I went to a performing arts school called San Diego School of Creative and Performing Arts. And I met my dance mentor there, Mr. Donald Robinson, who is still my mentor to this day. I call him my dance dad. And he pushed me in directions that I had no idea I was capable of going. From there, I graduated and I went to the Alvin Ailey Academy or Alvin Ailey Dance School. And then I got bumped up into a position to where I was able to actually almost perform. Uh, but I had a little bit of a nervous breakdown just because of the culture shock moving from California to New York. It's a completely different, experience. And so I ended up coming back home for a little bit. And then I went to Colorado and danced with Clitter Parker Robinson, traveled a lot with that company around the world. And then I moved to LA and I danced with Lula Washington and again, traveled around the country. And then I moved to Dayton, Ohio, where I danced with the Dayton Contemporary Dance Company, which is where I found my footing. No pun intended. Um, but I really found my footing, right? I found my footing there, and I was able to kind of come into my own, within that company. And towards the end of the company, right before my retirement, I was able to be named one of the 25 dancers to watch in Dance Magazine. It was the first time that they had actually started to do provide that honor for people. So I had no idea what that was, and how big of a deal it was. I was like, I'm retiring, so like I don't know, whatever. And right before that, I got a nice write up in the New York Times by Anna Kisselkoff, which was like she was a dance critic in New York. So some really cool things, happened in my career. And I knew I wanted to dance and I was honored to be able to do it for the amount of time that I was able to do it for.
when you look back, does it look like someone else's life, or do you remember all and they go like, "That was me," or "That is me," a part of who you are?
I wish I were there yet. I'm not there yet because when
Okay.
I look, I see trauma.
Mhm.
And not trauma in the sense of it's incapacitating for me. It's more so I look at it and I go, "Oh, this is when that injury happened. Oh, this is when that happened.
Um,
Oh, moment." Sometimes it's some good stuff too. This is that moment where me and my friend Veronica really connected, and are things like that. And so I always tell people when they ask me if I miss dance, I always say I miss the community, kind of what we are talking about earlier. I miss the community, the building of relationships, the rapport, in meeting new people. I have a couple of I call them my dance wives that I still stay in connection with because you build this like a deeper connection than any connection that you could ever have because not only are you emotionally involved, but you're physically connected to this person that you're dancing with um this entire time. So it's a beautiful thing. It's a
mm.
yeah.
Do you wanna elaborate about the accident?
So I was supposed to be retired, as I mentioned. I came back to California in 2004, and I retired. What is it like? Share, all these people they retire and then they come out of retirement. So I think people were calling me that. Oh, sure. And I was dancing with my home ballet company, California Ballet, and so they were asking me to do the Nutcracker, and I did a couple other shows, like a spring show, and then a Nutcracker. And so I was dancing a section of the Nutcracker called Arabian, which is a whole other thing. That's a whole like cultural appropriate. It's just a whole mess, but we won't get into that today because that's a whole other conversation. Um, and I remember earlier I was dancing Chinese and I felt a little pinch in the back of my heel. Didn't really think anything of it because my entire career I've never had an injury. Never had an injury before, so I didn't know what it's supposed to feel like. And I came back from lunch, and then we were doing the evening performance, get through the entire first act, get through the second act, and we're coming out for our in the finale. And I go up for a big jump, which is called a soda shot. And I come down on the floor, and it felt like I tripped. And I'm like, huh. So I try to get back up, and I fall back down into the ground again because my Achilles was ruptured at that point, which I didn't know. I just thought I had broken my ankle. Because I look up at my foot and it's just kind of dangling there. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I was like, I just broke my ankle. The best part about that whole evening was I go to the emergency room and I walk in. I'm wearing a two-piece gold lame outfit, mind you. Yes.
Lovely.
Yes. 2 days ago with my outfit, and I have, like, the because 'cause I'm bald, and so, put the band on the baby, so the little feather. So I'm wearing that, and so I get wheeled in, because I couldn't walk, so I'm wheeled in, and the nurses at triage were like, "Okay, we don't know what's going on here, but you're coming back right away." It was filled with people, but they're like, "No, we're bringing you back right away because we need to understand what all of this is happening here."
You just got leveled up right there, just like
I got leveled up, and then there were students there who had never seen, like, an Achilles rupture before, so I was in the hallway, and they were, like, squeezing my calf, like, I was like, "Who are you people? Why are you touching me?" They're like, "Oh, well, we're just interns, and, we've never seen a rupture before," and I was like, "Okay, well, I'm not a guinea pig, so, like, stop touching me." So, it was a whirlwind, night, and it took me about a year in its entirety for me to heal, 6 months to kinda get back to some mobility, and, that's a time where I knew that I was done with dancing, and I went back to school and got my, psychology degree, while I was on the bed.
so done with dancing physically, but what about your heart and your soul?
I was done with my heart and my soul too because and I knew this because when the surgeon asked me what I wanted to do after the surgery, my response was, "Oh, I just want to walk." And dancer would have said, "I need to get back up on stage. I like that because and I knew that that's not who I was.
That
And
is profound because there are moments in life that is transitional, and we have the choice to take one path or the other. It seems as if the path you took served you well.
yeah, it did. And there's some bumps in the road. I don't want to say bumps, but there were some side tracks, I guess I should say, because I
I didn't
did
say perfection, I just said
right,
certain bumps.
because I did try to, because I didn't just kinda, like, elaborate a little bit more on that piece of it, like, I did try to do, like, a dance thing again, like, I tried to go back to school
Okay.
and get my master's in fine arts, and while I was there, I was so concentrated and fixated on the mental health components, I could not even write about dance. And I remember one of my professors pulled me to the side and she's like, "Are you sure you wanna get your master's degree in fine arts?" And I was like, "I don't think so." I was like, "I think I'm gonna go and do an MSW." I know it was something else, like a master's in clinical it was something long, exaggerated name, and then I settled on, my MSW, Master's in Social Work.
I'm still gonna stay firm with that. The decision you made in the hospital served you well. It was a needing of confirmation because sometimes it's easier to go back to what we've done before versus moving forward into the new opportunity and new way life has taken us. And life was still saying, no, go with the decision you made from the beginning.
Yeah, no, for sure, and I really, am happy that I did make that decision because it did. It allowed me to really meet me. Because as I was mentioning earlier, about the dancer piece, it's like that was my identity. Like my identity was dancer. People knew me as Danny the dancer. And it but I was like, "Cool." You know? At first, I was like, "Cool," because that's who I am, and that's what I do. When I went back to school, I was challenged to think about, like, what my other identities were, and I wasn't even saying, like, Black. I wasn't even saying a part of, like, the LGBT community. I wasn't even saying a son. I wasn't saying brother. I wasn't even, like I didn't, like, labeling those, identities on myself because I was so
Immerse.
yeah, and just being the dancer piece of it, I was like, "I don't even know who I am." It was one of the first assignments that we did in school, was asking like, "Who are you?" And I was like, "I don't know because 'cause I'm not a dancer anymore, so I have no idea who I am." And
So who is Danny now? Who
yeah,
if the question comes, who is Danny D?
Danny D is a son, Danny D is a brother, Danny D is a, puppy father.
Sure, okay.
I do, but a puppy father. And I mean, people always say that I have my mom, and a lot of other people say I have like multiple children, just because I worked at the a residential
Mhm.
facility. They were all my kids at the time. I'm a black, prominent, male in especially in a field that is dominated by white females. And so like it allowed me to really identify my purpose in being where I am and who I am, identifying my privilege, of being able to be in a room, and provide context about someone who is professional, and someone who is not falling in that stereotypical track that people would typically say about who a black man was.
Thank you. And knowing your level of knowledge clinically as it relates to mental health, I am curious why you wanted to have this conversation and why you think it is important.
Yeah, I it's important, one, because as black males, and a lot of my clients are drawn to me are black males, and I'm so proud of them. I tell them that, initially for first our sessions, I was like, I'm very proud of you for even coming and showing that. Because there's a stigma, in the community, for males in general, but particularly in black males, to not really focus on our mental health
Okay.
and also not to grieve and mourn. You don't
Mhm.
cry. Like, why are you crying? It's one of those things that you're taught at an early age. It's like, men don't cry. And I remember crying for my brother. My brother passed away when I was about 4. No, I was a little bit older. I was about 5. Um, and that was the last time I had cried for years until my dad died on my 21st birthday. And then I cried again. And then from that point, I just cry all the time now.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. For the men that are listening to this conversation and it's triggered something, I was told not to cry, but
Yeah.
yet I've experienced profound trauma and I only let it out of the box 2 or 3 times. What is that doing to a person's body?
Right. So it's like, what what we're doing is we're being taught to compartmentalize, right? And we're being taught to put these things in different places, in different boxes, and then sometimes you just throw them away and or cover them up, bury them, whatever that is for you. And so it causes illnesses. If we're not processing, our trauma or just even having conversations about it, it causes this internal turmoil, which causes, sickness for a lot of people. And, I used to do a somatic class, and we would just talk about, we'll do body scanning, in the class, and we would figure out like where we're holding our trauma. I was like, where's your pain right now? And they're like, oh, my back hurts, my stomach. And I was like, all right, we're going to focus on that area right now because that's where you're holding your trauma, because it becomes a physical manifestation, at times for people.
That is so true. So, how did you meet, I don't know, Dale, Larry, DL, I don't know what I'm gonna call him, how we're gonna do this. So, actually, before that, I have a question. You mentioned all the things that you've accomplished in life and been able to do. Do those things even matter at this big old age when we think about what's important to us in life?
No, I mean, not really. It's like I've never been one to boast and to brag, about like accomplishments and things like that. I'm how would I always say? I was like, I'm the Kelly of the Destiny's Child, whereas like 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 Kelly, like, listen,
Don't show our age in this conversation. I need you.
I'm
Don't you
saying, like,
know, fame. Now you Kelly.
I'm just saying, Kelly's a better singer, and all that stuff. Like, she's a better vocalist, But Kelly's like, you know what? I know my worth, and that's how I always felt, especially around people who I know need that a little bit more. Like, I don't
Right.
need attention, and so I can pull back. I
No,
can
no, no,
definitely.
no. Not, the accomplishments are fine, but at this point in life, do those things have much value as they seem when we were younger compared to what's really important now? For you, that was the, I should have phrased it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess yes and no, in a sense, because it's like I mean, you definitely want to make sure that you are, again, honoring like what it is that you set out to do.
Yeah, you lived your life.
Those are your goals. But I feel like, yeah, I feel like the importance is a little bit different just because it's like, I'm like, it's first world problems, right? You know, or it's like it's first world problems. It's like, okay, well, I bought property and everything. That's great and dandy. I'm not going to be sitting and bragging about that piece of it because I'm like, there are other things that I need to focus on right now. Right. I need to make sure we're getting out of this like spiraling into fascism in this country right now.
Okay,
Um,
I'm gonna get you. I'm gonna
so
reel you back because if I let you go there, we will not come back.
No, I'm not. I wasn't gonna even go there because we will not go back. That's the point I wanted to make. And this is why I went onto social media, and Dale was a big part of the reason why I
Mm.
yeah.
So how did you and Dale meet?
Okay, so it was a setup and kind of a blind date. It was a blind date because I had never seen it before. And so he walks in, and I look, and I'm like, absolutely not. You know, oh,
Okay.
absolutely not. I mean, because typically I don't date. I didn't date men of
Less melanated people. Is that the
oh,
word?
yes, people with less melanin. Um, and and he was like picture boy of it, right? It was like blonde hair, blue eyes. Like I was like, why? Who even like? And so we started talking, and just cool people. And really sort of changed my perspective of it. I mean, I still give them side eye every now and then because I'm like, why you so white? You know. But
Say you I didn't get there with those glasses today, but go ahead.
yeah, this is he was like this white. Uh, but no, and he was able to really assimilate with like my lifestyle, my friends, my family, my mom, which was like a huge deal, a huge accomplishment. And so it made it a lot easier for me to see past that piece of it, for him because I was able to see within his soul. He's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful soul.
So how long before Dale side-eyed to Dale was your person?
I knew that day that he was my person. I did.
Like,
I knew that day. We talked for about 7 hours. Then we actually got kicked out of the place that we were at. We were at some coffee shop. And then we were just texting, after that, for another like 3 or 4 hours. And so I knew that day that I was in love with this person, that I was in love with Dale.
and what did you tell the person who how dare they sit you up and did that? Did you ever tell them have they been vindicated or is that still something that you still what does that look like?
Well, she didn't know because I didn't even say anything to her, because like after I knew that this was my person, I was like, okay, well, she did good.
Oh, so she's gonna listen to this conversation, be like, "You doubted me? Like, you did I knew you." Like, "Okay, so friend, you did well, friend. Okay."
Again, like people, she knows me, like because I've known her for quite some time, so she definitely knows who I like and what I like. But yeah, it was a wild card, just because so the lack
And
of
glasses.
yeah, the glasses.
So when you say in love, what are some things that you remember most about Dale? Things that make you laugh, things of who he was?
The biggest thing for me was he allowed me to be me. And I've been in relationships before where the person comes in and wants to change things about you. Uh, and like one of the biggest things that in my sessions is, it's like we're not trying to change a person. We're just trying to teach them how to treat you. And that's what that person is going to be able to do. You're providing a manual, and some skills to say like, hey, based off of negotiables and non-negotiables, and your core beliefs and your values. Like this is what we do for people. And he allowed me to, continue to be me, and I felt safe.
Mhm.
Felt safe.
Being loved well changes who we are. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I am my attachment style is avoidance. So it was
Oh, you
very
like runaway bride type. You
I know, like I get a little I don't wanna use that word, but I sort of like close off a little bit, you know, at times, and he was more well, I guess it was a little bit more secure attachment for
Okay.
him. Because he was very open, and able to communicate his needs, adequately and all that. And so he was able to see when I was in he called them one of my moods. So he would make me I forgot what we called it, um, my go juice.
Okay.
So we got this from this. We watched the Honey Boo Boo show, back in the day. I think it was like the Toddlers and Tiaras or something like that. And then she got her own show, and so she would like she would drink this juice, and then she would be all like wired afterwards. So he would make me this juice, and it was just like it was honey, lemon, and water. Really, really simple, and it would just make me. It made my stomach feel better because this is when I
Okay.
was like that. I was had like ulcers and just all
Um,
this stuff going on for me, and so yeah, so he was able to just see who I was and help out and provide and be a support, be a support.
thank you. Just for people listening, you mentioned attachment styles. You want to run through like what those are so people have an idea of that. Everyone may not be aware of what that means.
Yeah, so attachment styles, there's four of them. There's secure attachment, there's anxious, and then there is avoidant, and then there is disorganized. And your attachment styles are based off of your relationship with your caregiver. Everybody wants to be secure, but unfortunately, most of us are not. And the attachment styles do not make you a bad person. People are like, oh my God, I'm disorganized. And I was like, oh, I mean, that's just is based off of your upbringing, your environment, and your relationship with your, primary caregiver. But it just allows people to have a better understanding of how to engage and interact, with people with those different styles, especially if you have like an anxious and avoidant, which is typically the attraction that people get to that anxious and avoidant. Where the avoiding closes off and the anxious is super anxious and has anxiety because like, why are you closing off? And then they get more close off, and it just keeps becoming over.
That's
Right, completely overbearing, for both of them. Like there's a super uncomfortability from the person who's more avoided, and then there is this anxious, like I said, that super, hyper anxiety happening from the person who is that anxious attachment. So it's
wow.
just really understanding like how to what those attachment styles are, love languages as well too, and how to interact and engage with that person adequately.
Mm.
Yeah.
So Dale. Okay, so let's get into the Dale Larry thing. Well, what are we doing there? What does that mean? I need some tea. I need the backstory. I need to know why we don't know which one we're doing.
So he does not he's named after his father.
Okay.
And so it's Larry Dale Miller, is his full name. And so he's named after his father. He does not like his father. They had a horrible relationship. And so he didn't want to be connected with that name. I like Larry better. So I would call him Larry, and he responded to it, obviously. While we're around each other. And then, in public, I would respect his wishes and call him
Yeah, I have a
Dale.
side question for the mental health side of Danny D. Do you find that people on average, swag from the top of your head or statistics, have more unsettling bad relationships with mother or father when you look at people overall, or is it equal? I feel like I hear more dad trauma, but I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, it's more, and it depends on the gender as well
Oh,
too.
okay.
Yeah, like my typically, I don't know. Oh, I need to do some more. I need to pay attention a little bit more.
No,
It's
she was a really good
like
person.
well, yeah, because it does vary. I do like my gay males. Are typically have daddy issues, but then there's
Okay.
also some mommy stuff as well too there.
Okay.
Uh, but typically there's the dad disconnection piece. And the mom is like the primary caregiver for them. So it just, I mean, it varies.
Okay.
Like, it varies based off of my particular clientele.
Okay. That's fair. And going back to love, allowing ourselves to grieve, allowing ourselves to cry. And
Mm.
I'm going to say for men, how have you managed your grief from Danny the person missing Larry Dale versus Danny the mental health professional?
Yeah, that's a little backstory, a little more context, I should say. And I was thinking about this morning, and something I'm going to talk about in therapy when I do therapy next week. Um, like I realized that the most prominent and important men in my life have passed away.
Mm,
So my brother passed away, as I mentioned earlier. Like he
uh,
passed away at 5. Was my idol. One of the reasons why I started dancing, I saw him doing the whiz, on stage, and I was like, "What is this?" Like it was like I had never seen anything like that before. He played the Scarecrow, the Michael Jackson role in the Whiz, and
have
I was
we my that was the first play my dad ever took us to in Chicago to go see the Wiz live, and I was just like, "What?" I
like,
was just yeah. Oh my gosh.
I had no idea, and I had not even seen the movie. I don't know if the movie was out.
Oh, that was years later.
Yeah, maybe the movie. I think the movie was because the movie came out in the '70s, right? I think it was
Mhm.
'70s, yeah. But I hadn't seen the movie yet, and I just remember seeing him, and I was like, "What?" I didn't understand what was going on. I was like, I wanted to get up and dance, and I wanted to sing. I wanted to do. I was like, I don't know anything, but I want to do all the things. So he passed away. My dad passed away. Larry passed away. My godfather passed away. My one of my mentors passed away. And so there are all of these prominent men in my life who passed away. And so it was always like this fear for me that Larry would pass away. And he said to me, this was the first night that we met. He's like, on my 50th birthday, I am going to die. Not he didn't say I'd say he did the 50th birthday. Sorry. He said, when I'm 50, I'm going to die. And I was like, that's silly. Yeah, like
How old was he then when you guys met?
so he was 40. Oh gosh. He was like 40, 42.
Okay.
Yeah, he was like 40, 42. No, he was a little bit, 40. He was 40.
Okay.
Because I was 38. Yeah, 38. Um, and so I was like, that doesn't even make any sense. Like, cause I grew up Christian and I was like, we don't believe in psychic. I was talking about psychic. I don't believe in psychics. It's not real, blah, blah. And so we would joke about it like all the time. I was like, guess whose birthday is coming up, and like, it was this whole thing. And then like he died on his 50th birthday from a heart attack, which is what she said.
Hey,
Uh,
pause. On his
yeah.
birthday?
No, sorry, I keep saying on his birthday. It wasn't on his birthday. He died at 50, but not on his birthday.
What year was that, Danny?
This was 20 I'm trying to remember when I got back on TikTok when I got on TikTok, 'cause it was like 2018.
What were you guys doing when he had the heart attack? Or where were you?
I was, so he was doing some work in LA, and, he's an interior designer, and so he was doing some work in Los Angeles. I was back home, and we always communicated, frequently. Even when he was working, like, he would just text me randomly or whatever. And, I hadn't gotten a text from him for, like, a full day or any sort of communication at all for, like, a full day. And then I get a phone call from his sister that he had died. And I'm like, "What?" I was like, "But I kept saying, 'But I just talked to him.'" I kept saying that, like, over and over again, and then she started crying, I started crying, and because she was the only person in his life that, he actually cared about, besides me.
Um,
But family-wise, because it was such disbelief, but then it was also like I was also going like, "But he kept saying that, like, he said this." He said that he was gonna die, from a heart attack in his 50s, and she knew this as well too, and I don't it was very difficult for me to make it make sense and to make it be real, because it just didn't seem real, at all. Then I got angry because I was like, "Why would you leave me here?" Um, you know, then I got sad again. So I'm just basically going through the stages of grief, you know, basically going through the stages of grief. And I went through them like really, really quickly. Because I got to acceptance, at one point, and I was like, because I went back to what he said. I was like, he did say that he was going to die from a heart attack, in his 50s. And here we are, here we are. And we had conversations about like what to do, and what he would want me to do after his death. And again, like they were like silly conversations because I was like, they're not gonna die, that's done. And he's like, I want you to move on, I want you to meet other people, all these things, that you're supposed to say. And yeah, yeah. And kind of thinking about it again, like I cried then. That was the only time that I cried about it, now that I'm thinking about it. And like putting it together. Like I that was the only time when he and his sister we're on the phone, like, that's the only time that I cried about it.
why is the idea of crying so important? Because some people are not criers, some people are. Is it the crying or is it the release? Which should people look to, or do you look to in your own grieving process?
I feel like the release is more important than the crying because, I often, equate crying to, words that we can't really express. So it's not always, about the mourning process, but just about like I don't know what to say, and so now the tears were starting to come down, at a certain point. But I do feel like the release is the most important part, and I know what that feels like with the cry. I know what the release feels like with the cry, and that's happened 3 times. This happened with my brother, my dad, and then with Larry Dale.
When people are supporting someone that is grieving, and they're saying, "I've never seen them cry. I'm not sure if they're sad." What would you say to that statement?
People grieve in different ways. And, like if you really understand and think about the stages of grief, like you'll see, people react in completely different ways. Sometimes people intellectualize, kind of what's going on when they go into this role of like, you know what? I'm going to start working on the programs. I'm going to start, kind of, getting everything done for the funeral, so they go in different roles and everyone has their role, in that. And so it, we need to, as a society, stop judging people based on what we would do and
Mhm.
how we would react to a situation because you don't know. Like you don't even know how you're going to react because it's not your situation.
Right. How has grief been surprised you compared to what you thought from your intellectual part for you personally?
So I mentioned earlier, like Dale was the one who wanted me to go, and he's really the only reason why I went on TikTok because he's like, I was a Twitter person, like when Twitter was Twitter back in the day, and I had like I think like maybe 500,000 followers before the whole takeover and all this stuff. And he was like, "You're really funny. You should do videos, blah, blah." And I was like, "Well, that means I have to like wake up and like do my face and like, put on, put on some clothes and I'm like presentable on a video, And I went to TikTok and I was like, "Oh, you don't have to look presentable on a video because
They
people are
say
literally."
you got a video. Like, wait a second. I didn't see those videos where your face was done. I'm like, did I miss that?
I was like, I don't really see that a lot. And so it was more of a homage to him, with me moving over to TikTok, and then it just evolved into this whole thing that's, whatever it is right now. But yeah, no, I did it, and it was a part of my grieving process, because I
Okay.
to make sure that I'm honoring what he felt like because he's like, you're funny and you can dance and do all the things that he, was like.
Mm. How are you and YouTube also, I'll say, but I mean, not just on TT, but you are on YT also.
Yeah, I'm on YouTube and Instagram.
Okay.
Uh, as well too, which feeds into Facebook, which I didn't know. I was like, "What?" I was like, "How am I on Facebook?" Like, Facebook sent me some notification about like paying me, and I'm like, what?" But it feeds your Instagram feeds to Facebook.
Better.
That's
Alright.
all.
That's all on that.
Yeah.
What is the thing that you hold back from grief impacting you?
I mean, I know I need to function, because because it is just me, and so I feel like, and this is gonna be in my therapy session. I feel
You're
like
welcome.
taking a I feel like I have yet to fully, um, fully grieve. And I say that because I am still, and this is what I work on with my clients all the time. I'm still anchored, and my emotions are still tethered to that relationship. Although I know that he's no longer here, and the relationship is no longer going to be what it was because he's not here. But I am still tethered, and I do this comparison thing again. This is all stuff I teach my clients. I do the comparison because I'm like,
You say comparison to somebody potentially new to
this is
or
somebody
okay.
new. Yeah, it's someone new, and and it makes it difficult, for me. I mean, I'm kind of in a relationship right now, so like, if he does hear this, just know that I'm going to therapy.
Okay, I got is he eyeglasses or is he melanated? What we working with right now?
Eyeglasses,
Okay.
and there is some similarities.
But we like who we like. It's not like trying
Well,
to this is from my perspective. It's not trying to replicate. It's just we have a
Yeah,
type that we're comfortable with and makes us feel comfortable. And understanding the difference of those 2, I think,
correct.
is the heavy lifting.
Correct. And that's what has been the problem because we've kind of connected, he and I have kinda connected a couple of times, and that's been the problem for me is making sure that I am disconnecting the 2. Just because there are similarities doesn't mean that they're the same.
Mm, okay. What is the thing you haven't said about your grief?
What have I not said about my grief? I don't think I feel well, I haven't talked about it. This is the first time that I'm talking about it outside of a therapy because I started therapy. I started therapy not too long ago. Um, and we sort of glossed over this, but I think I definitely want to make sure that I'm delving more into the situation. I was when I started therapy, I was talking more about work and like how it was just not fun and all that stuff. But like this is a little bit more prevalent and I think it's going to allow me to be able to move forward
Okay.
or so. And even put into practice like what I'm teaching my clients. To be able to unanchor, those feelings and emotions so that they are memories and not this like constant tugging and attachment to that relationship.
Is it possible for the attachment and moving forward to happen in a duality? Does one have to become detached from their loved one, or do they put that love in a different space?
I do feel like there needs to be the detachment of the emotional connection.
Mm,
Uh, because it does make it challenging to move forward and really give that those feelings and emotion to another person. Not the same feelings and emotions, because again, like always gonna have love and care, for that
mhm.
person who's with us. But if we are leaning into, as mentioned earlier, the comparison piece, "Well, this is not the same," or, I wish this were, a little bit more like this, then it makes it a little bit more challenging for you to move forward.
Okay. I can see that. Being one who was widowed, and I will always consider myself my late husband's widow, who was as white as those glasses that you're wearing. Uh, we were together for 32 years. And when I was in a place to date and eventually got remarried, it was very important for me to also to understand what were my likes and dislikes versus what was I comparing someone else because it's not fair to them. So as we're having your pre therapy session, and I will not charge you for it, it's free. Um, you and I connected on TT, TikTok, and you mentioned you've not spoke about this out loud. What made this the moment in this platform to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I you asked me, right? And no one has ever really asked me, you
Mm,
know, talk about it. And I was like, yeah. And I think the timing as well too, because I felt we connected before, and even then, I think I had said yeah, or I would get back to you. I think I said something like that, and I wasn't ready then.
a year later,
It was a year,
a year later.
and by the
But
way,
I'm
like,
not counting, but I'm just saying, go ahead.
and I wasn't ready then. It was like,
1
eh,
year later.
later. I know, yeah, but yeah, and then when you reached out again, you were like, hey, by the way, 1 year later. I said, "Yeah." I was like, "Yeah, I do wanna talk about this." And I also felt like I felt like I had completed my last my last goal of my original set of goals, which
Yeah.
was, to buy property. And so that sanction of my, life was complete, and so, like, now I'm able to kinda move forward and jump over that hurdle.
Okay. You said something really important about you weren't ready then. How I want you to talk about how important it is that everybody's timeline with grief is different and knowing when we're ready to do things and sometimes when we're not. Because the outside voices can because they're uncomfortable with what it looks like and they're trying to push you. I think you should be doing this, you doing this. And you're going, I'm not ready. So what is your perspective, Danny the griever first?
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's exactly what I mean, that's what we talk about in mental health, right? It's like we don't give people things to do. It's like we're working in a collaborative manner, and when they're ready, to start those next steps, then we're encouraging, people to take those next steps. It's this that it's like you have this feeling of like, okay, I'm ready, and it's almost like this feeling of surrender, where I did feel this release, as we mentioned earlier, of almost letting go, and able to move forward. Able to
Mm.
move. Yeah.
How has your grief changed how you provide services and mental health to other people?
Yeah, I feel like initially I would not take people, who are grieving because I was like, I felt like I'm still living. Now it's a little bit different because I have a different perspective of it because I'm on the other side of it. And I didn't want to do any of that, parallel processing, especially with the grief, because you can fall right back into it, especially if you're in those moments of like vulnerability and you're feeling raw. It's easy to just kind of like spiral back into some of those emotions. But like you said, I feel like I'm over the hump. And so I can do that a little bit better. And I can see from, bird's eye view. And find a perspective and allow space, and patience and timing, for that individual to be able to process what it is that they want to process with me. If they don't, sometimes we just sit there, you know.
Mm.
Yeah. We sit in silence and, I'm like, when you're ready, we can talk about whatever it is you want to talk about.
Okay. Have there been any epiphanies being actually in this versus what you had studied or learned all this time for you and actually in this grief?
Mm. It's so that's an interesting question because it's like I read these things, like if I'm looking for a diagnosis for one of my clients, I'm like, oh, boom, boom, boom. It's typically textbook, and you're like, how is this possible? It's like, well, because this is what people do. People do research and they study, and all the things, which is how you get a diagnosis. And I do feel like it was pretty textbook, for me. There was no surprises that sort of stood out to where I was like, "Oh, I had no idea this is what grief would feel like." It feels exactly the way that it is portrayed. Whether you see it in movies, whether you're reading it in a book or an article, it feels exact for me. It feels exactly that way that it's being portrayed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm curious if I have the numbers right, we're 7 years from the time that Dale took his last breath. What did that first year of functioning look like for you?
I went into more of the intellectualizing piece.
I don't know why I'm not surprised.
Not I did. I was watching I started rewatching Desperate Housewives, and, I was, like, looking at the Brie character, the redhead on there, and I was like, "That's me." The way that she portrayed, like, the just the her yeah, all the things. And so it did. I just kind of continued to do what I was doing. I was trying to honor, and like I said, I created the TikTok and things like that. And so that's where I put in most.
Sure, sure.
Yeah, definitely checking off all the boxes, and making sure things were the way that they're supposed to be.
Has that been the 7 years? And when you say you don't feel like you fully grieve because you've been performance-based in your grief?
Yeah, it's the and just the previous like, it also like makes more sense for the previous question too, where it's like it feels exactly the way it's supposed to feel, Where it's like I feel like I have not like grieved, and processed this because again, like this is the first time that I'm really talking about it. And as I tell my clients, the more you talk about it, the more that you write it down, the more that you journal. Because I just put it in a box. I did. I put it in a box, and then I go like, "Oh, it's the anniversary, and let me do a video, and let me do the things that I'm supposed to do. All the things that I'm supposed to do in order to grieve." And I need to do a little bit more. Yep, checking off the boxes because I'm Bree from Desperate Housewives.
Oh, okay, so is there any fear that when you give yourself to this, you can't retract, Danny? Because it's fair to say it would not just be Dale that you're grieving. It's your brother at 5 and your dad at 21, your mentors. And we're just discussing grief as it relates to someone leaving this world, not the grief of the Achilles heel, the grief of all the other life traumatic type things. And is it a protective mechanism to not allow ourselves to take that rawness? Because I don't know if Danny will be able to get up from that. And so this is safe. Or what would you say to that? I'm just a bunch of hooey.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. I feel like if I do go there completely, then I'm going to fall apart and not be able to pick myself back up. And a lot of times I feel like it's just me, really kind of doing this on my own, although I do have support systems. I have great friends, family, in place, but I often feel like it is just me doing this on my own, or I feel like it has to be. Let me rephrase that. It has to be me doing this all on my own, and that's another thing I'm going to be putting in my therapy box.
You just like me to send them the video or how?
Yes, this is a video, so we can calm down and.
But to your point, and I am grateful for you trusting me with this conversation. I know this is not, I mean, you and I may have some banter, but I know this is not something you did lightly. You are very protective of who's going to hold your voice for a lot of different reasons, who's going to respect your story, your love. Being a Black male in the LGBT community, that's not something that's just like brushed over because there's also a part of that, this disenfranchised grief, where people do not respect that or say that this love has value. So to bring this, I respect that and I appreciate the trust in the idea of also that we don't do that. That is an important thing that I found that people start having survival patterns, that they are things that we start off doing, but after a while, we feel like they're no longer serving us. And then I often hear people say, I feel like I'm stuck in my grief because the survival patterns have held,
Yeah,
but they've not allowed us, the grief hasn't continued to move, as you mentioned, moving forward.
yeah,
And that is difficult because
mhm,
there is more release that we want to continue living.
yeah.
If someone, your clients, therapist, the friend, would listen to this conversation, what would you want them to take away from this?
That grieving is your own process. And, you know, listening to other people telling you how to grieve is counterproductive. But truly understanding what your grief is and how you're going to grieve is probably the most important factor. Because as I realized that I have not properly grieved. I checked off boxes of what grief is supposed to look like. And, you know, again, like I mentioned earlier, it's, talking about it, processing it, in some sort of way, whether you're journaling, you're going to your therapist, however it is you need to get this out, like it has to come out, in some sort of way so that you can start that healing process.
Okay.
Yeah.
I try to give my guests an opportunity to be the podcast host. So this will be interesting. Do you have any mental health, Mr. Man, have any questions of me?
Let's see. So, I mean, you said that you were, so first husband. Uh,
Can you see the statue over there?
yeah,
No,
got it.
no,
uh,
no.
well, yeah, melanin. Melanin, kind of, yeah. No, and it doesn't. Like it really doesn't matter, but then it does matter. At the same time, just because of the connectability piece that happens sometimes. And I think for me, with Dale, like that was the biggest fear, was the connectability and being able to say, like, Eartha Kitt, and not going, who's Eartha Kitt? Because that offends me to my very core in nature. Oh, so I'm like, I don't
What's
want
the question?
I because I had an experience where I met Eartha Kitt, in New York, and this was around the time of Boomerang. The Boomerang movie came out,
Okay.
and we went to Brooklyn, and she was in the kitchen cooking fried chicken, and I walk in, and I was like, "That's Eartha Kitt,"
Now you're gonna
So
say that to yourself, like,
right, I'm like, so I can
don't
like
be
say,
weird, don't be weird.
or I can like just chill out and just like sit down on the couch, be like, "Oh, this fried chicken is good." I did the latter. I was just chill, about it.
Of course.
Got from that story, and he didn't know who Eartha Kitt was, and I was like, I don't get it. I was like, you at least know Catwoman, because I mean, he's of a particular age as well too. So you should know. I was like, she was like the first black Catwoman, so like you gotta know. I mean, come on, you gotta know that. Like, out of all the things, you may not seen Boomerang. I get that you may have, but like you remember Catwoman, like come on, you gotta know that.
Right. So, was there a question for me?
So, question. So, how is it for you now, and what was your process?
And when you say now, um, the first year, so interesting enough, something we have very similar besides that. My late husband was very convinced he was not going to make it to the age of 55. There was cardiac issues in his family. So we too had a lot of conversations of what my life would look like in his absence. And I too, when we were staying up late saying, dude, I need you to go to sleep. You're talking too much. I can't, these don't make sense. And then lo and behold, at 51, he had a
Mhm.
heart attack and died. And then I was like, I was then grateful for every conversation we had because I speak to so many people that carry guilt or uncertainty about how their late partner would feel about them continue living because the world has a whole bunch of commentary. But when you have that safety net, I know because we talked about it. And then my heart goes out to people who have never had that conversation and they struggle with the idea of continuing their life. So we had the conversation, but that first year, hot garbage. I mean, 3 months, I learned what staring at pain looked like. I would just be like, "He died?" Like,
Yeah,
I was there, and I'm just like, "That's so crazy." I mean, I know we live and we die, but
yeah,
your person
yeah.
and trying to understand who am I being with
Mhm.
him for 32 years. Every goal in life was like the kids were getting older, we're about to be empty nesters. And then I'm like, but dang, empty nest went too far. Like they both went to the military, he died, and I'm home alone. I was like, this was not the version.
Yeah.
And just so, so grateful for my siblings, my friends, my faith. Few more whiskey sours than a person probably should have had in that first year. I will not pretend like it didn't. And just allowing me to fall apart and not try to pretend that everything is okay. there were weeks I did not take a shower. There was long amount of time lamenting in the bed, and a lot of therapy, a lot of journaling, a lot of talking. And I remember my aunt, who's now deceased, her daughter, my first cousin, had passed, and she said, "Tina, you gotta get it out." She said, "I would talk to a stranger on the street if I felt like it was hovering and needed to talk." And I learned that from her, and I had to get it out, and I know it served me well. Still, the anniversary of his passing and his birthday still gives me pause,
Mhm.
and I'm okay with that. And the reason being, when I think of 32 years that I spent with Mark Farnwall, if I take 32 years times 12 months times hours times days, why would I think a very short period of time that would go away? I believe in the duality. I will always love him.
Mhm.
I feel like it's more difficult for me to say I wouldn't love him. He doesn't exist. I cannot talk about 32 years of my life without thinking of him and part of that.
Yeah.
So then it became the idea, as you mentioned, the carrying forward. What do I let go and what do I move forward with? And so those conversations rooted my ability to say, I'm still alive and I still get to live and be happy. And going back to purchasing property, we had purchased property together, but the home I'm in now was the first property I purchased by myself. And I was so scared. I was like, I gotta do it by myself. And I put in an application, doing everything. And the amount that they wanted me to get a house for, I said, nobody's spending that kind of money. I don't know what you do. Like, we over here in budget bill.
Right.
And I remember closing on this house, and I came in here the day of closing with a blow up mattress. I was like, I'm in here. And it was just like, I'm enough. Whatever that looks like, if God has allowed me to still be in existence, I have purpose and I have meaning, and coming to terms, because I believe when we partner with someone, a lot of our identity becomes intertwined in that relationship. And so
Mhm.
when they're no longer here, there's almost a separating of your soul trying to understand. But then I have to remember I was enough before him, then I am still enough now. And I get to bring all of that that we endured, went through in this version of me.
Yeah. That's Thank you.
You're welcome. And being able to serve other people with this nonprofit, even though I have a faith, this organization is a non-faith based 501(c)(3) supporting the bereaved, because one of the things you mentioned also, we know other people are having this experience, but if we don't hear them talking about it, our brain can tell us no one else is going through this, no one else is doing this to this level. But people such as yourself choosing to share your story allows other people to know, okay, I'm not the only person going through this. And that is important, I believe.
I agree. I agree. Representation.
Yes. So, um, you're looking like I've asked her the question. I don't have another, so I'm not going to ask you unless you do.
Yeah, I don't have another
I
question.
think so. I will allow you to close out this conversation with any final thoughts, maybe something we didn't cover that you wanted to talk about, however you'd like to do that.
Well, for me, I just wanted to just kind of thank you for providing me with the space and the opportunity to initially start this discussion. It's going to be an ongoing discussion, with me and my therapist. Just about, really me moving away from that space of checking off boxes and really delving into this piece of understanding and exploring and investigating a little bit more. So, yeah.
All right.
Mhm.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for spending another episode with Widowhood Real Talk. If you found the contents of today helpful, share the episode to anyone you know who may need it. Subscribe to the show and tune in to Widowhood Real Talk each week. Then, visit widowhood-realtalkwithtina.org to join the community and access additional resources. Remember, you are not alone in this journey.